Hello, I'm Robert Kiyosaki, and thank you for listening. I'm here today to tell you that even though we are in tough times, you can still be a success. In fact, it's during tough times that many people get ahead financially. In fact, I'm looking forward to these tough times. There are many reasons for this economic crisis we are in today, and it is the biggest financial crisis in the history of the world. In my opinion, it is greater than the Great Depression, which began in 1929. One of the many reasons for the crisis is for the first time, you're now competing for a job with somebody who works in China, India, or the Philippines, or Eastern Europe. And for Americans, this means that you can no longer make $80 an hour because there's people in countries all over the world who are willing to work for $1 an hour. How do you compete with that? Today, with the information age, I can now hire accountants and attorneys in India who speak great English and who understand our laws extremely well. Why would I pay somebody $500 an hour, an accountant or attorney, when I can hire somebody in India for $25 an hour? So this is one of the big reasons the idea of a safe, secure job for life is really an obsolete idea. You couple that with technology, and today I can replace people with technology. Why would I pay somebody more money when I can replace them with a computer? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Today, companies are not just downsizing, they're just letting thousands of people go. Unemployment is rampant. The tragedy is we have many bright students leaving school, let's say age 24 to 35, just loaded down with debt from college loans, and they can't even find a job. So the big problem today is in a global society and industrial age world, the idea of a safe, secure, high-paying job for life is an obsolete idea. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that has now sold over 25 million copies worldwide, it is the #1 personal finance book in all history and has been on the New York Times bestseller list for over 8 years. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a true story of my two dads. As I said, my real dad was the head of education for the state of Hawaii, a PhD. Great father, great dad. But he was the one who always said to me, go to school and get a job, work hard, save money, and get out of debt. And my rich dad said to me, who was my best friend's father, who started teaching me starting at the age of 9, he says, if you're going to be rich, don't get a job, don't save money, and don't get out of debt. You have to learn to use money and be an entrepreneur. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a very simple story about two fathers tell their sons, one rich, one poor, about how to manage their lives and take control of their future. And thank God in 1974, I listened to my Rich Dad. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was book 1 in the Rich Dad series of books, and there's a number of books today. But book number 2 is the most important book for people looking to make changes in your life. So if you're looking to make changes, a change of mindset, a change of how you look at the world, it is book number 2, and book number 2 is entitled The Cash Flow Quadrant. And the cash flow quadrant is very simple. Think of making a cross in the middle of a piece of paper. On the left-hand upper corner, put an E. The lower left corner, put an S. Upper right, put a B. And the lower right, put an I. E stands for employee. So that's why my poor dad always said, go to school so you can get a job, because my poor dad wanted me to become an employee. S stands for small business, specialist, or solo. So a lot of times, many small business people are S, or they're specialists like a doctor or a lawyer. My mom wanted me to become a doctor. And she says, son, why don't you become a doctor? In other words, become an S. And I said, there's only one problem, Mom. She says, what's that? S's are smart people. Now, for some of you know, I didn't do that well in school, even though my dad was the head of education. So my mom says, you're right. You shouldn't be a doctor because you'll never do well in school. So I didn't become an S. See, S's believe they have to do everything on their own. When you listen to a S, they'll always say the same words. If you want it done right, do it by yourself. So a lot of times they're just loners. And you look at different sports, like golf is a pretty lonely sport. You play it by yourself. On the B and the I side, B stands for big business, 500 employees or more, or 10 million or more in income, gross income. So very few people make the B quadrant. By starting your own business in the network marketing industry, you have a chance to move from the E and the S, from employee to self-employed or small business or specialist, to the big business side, which is to be a business owner, and where you have a lot of people working with you and for you. Your job is to spread the wealth to as many people as possible. Now, this is where the I fits in. I invest a lot in real estate. I have gold and silver companies. I have oil, and I have my book businesses. I have lots of businesses. But I invest my money in the I quadrant, and the problem with most people is they don't have enough money to invest. That's the problem. They say, well, how can I invest? I don't have any money. Well, the reason you don't have any money on the E and the S side, the taxes are so high, you can't get ahead. I pay less taxes than most of my employees, percentage-wise. I make millions of dollars, but I'll pay down to around 15% tax. Most employees, they're lucky. The more money they make, the higher they pay in taxes. So those are the big differences between the B, ES, B, and the I. Many E's and S's cannot invest simply because they're out of money. The government sucks their money out through taxes, through debt. Buy a house is your biggest investment, which is not. And number two is you put your money into, a pension plan, and all this stuff. So your money is going to the mutual fund companies, and then inflation kills you. You look at oil and gas and all that, they just keep going up. So a guy like me is making fortunes because I invest directly in oil wells and gold companies and silver and stuff like this. So as inflation hits, I make more money. So the B and the I side, the tax laws are different. I can make a lot more money on the B and I side than the E's and S's can make. So that's the power of the cash flow quadrant. By reading that book, you'll see that the E's, S, B's, and I's all have different mindsets. The tax laws are different, and your friends are different. So that's why the cash flow quadrant is an essential book for anybody looking to make changes in their lives. They estimate that 80% of the people are on the E and the S side. I actually think it's higher, like 95%, but for safety factor, let's call it 80%. The first thing you have to shift is your mindset. And then, a lot of people say to me, well, it's tough being an entrepreneur, or entrepreneurs are born, not made. That's not true. The trick is, how do you change your mindset, and how do you get the set of skills that allow you to transition from employee or small business self-employed to big business and investor? Out of all the business models I've discovered, one stood out from the rest. It requires little upfront money, very low overhead, and can be worked part-time and can generate you the income part-time so that you can transition out of your full-time job. And this great business opportunity is a thing called network marketing. The thing about entrepreneurs is they make things happen. They take control of their lives. They don't let other people's small minds stop them. And the beauty of a network marketing business, the reason I recommend it, is for you to be supported by an organization, to go through your fears, to change your friends, to not care what other people say or think about you. If you can do that, if you can handle what pointy-headed little intellectuals say to you about this business, then you shall grow up to become a great entrepreneur. But as long as you care so much about what other people think of you, you'll probably never be successful in life, no matter what you do. Because as you know, this world is not an easy place. It's not fair. In fact, sometimes it's really, really cruel, because if you're poor, they step on you. If you're not successful, they step on you. If you don't have confidence, they step on you. So it's up to you to gain that confidence, the skill set, the mindset, the guts, the determination to not care what other people say about you, because 95% of them are broke anyway. So let me share with you my reasons for recommending network marketing. First of all, I've never done it, and I had a closed mind to it. I thought it was terrible. I was invited to several of these events, and I sat there and I said, why should I do that? Well, the reason I said, why should I do that, is because I knew how to start a business on my own anyway. That's what I had a rich dad for. But it was a friend of mine in Texas who opened my mind up to network marketing. And here he was, a rich guy, and he was starting a network marketing business. I said, Bill, why are you doing that? You don't need the money. He says, that's correct. But I need to give back. I need to train other people. And more importantly, I need investors from my other businesses. So he said one of the problems he had was he talked to people about investing in his real estate company. Most people didn't have any money. So he says, well, if I can help solve their problem of not having enough passive income, maybe they'll invest in my real estate businesses. And so I went, my God, it really is about people helping people. That's all he was doing. It was not about being greedy or trying to sell something. It was just trying to help your fellow human being. And that's when my mind started to shift. And I realized that most people will never make the transition from the E and the S side to the right side, the B and the I side. And that's all he was doing. He was helping people make the transition from employee or self-employed or small business to big business and the investor side. And with that, I changed my mind. And that's when I started looking into network marketing with open eyes, with refreshed point of view. I had to let go of my closed-minded ideas of what I had heard. And what I found, because I went to some of these conventions and I signed up and I went to look at things, I found out they're fabulous organizations. Now, let me warn you, there's good and bad in everything. There were good leaders and bad leaders. But what I was really impressed with in most of the companies and most of the leaders was a sincere desire to help their fellow human being grow, to become bigger than they really are, to gain the confidence, to gain the skills necessary to someday become a great entrepreneur. And that's what I saw. I saw network marketing as a great personal development type of business. And that's why I saw it, as my new book title says, The Business for the 21st Century. It is about developing people, not pushing them down. It's about building them up so they can take better control of their lives and their future without worried about being fired all the time, or will I be downsized, or what if the economy changed? Network marketing business, the business of the 21st century, is about turning people from employees to entrepreneurs. That's what I support. So although I've never belonged to a network marketing business, I do support. The Rich Dad Company supports individuals shifting from employee or self-employed to the big business, entrepreneur, and investor side. So that's why I support network marketing. It's a fabulous way to grow and help other people to grow and realize their full potential in life.